I'm Kim Courvoisier, your host, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two absolute Lob legends, Tyler Dornenberg, Senior Director, Business Development, and Mike Tuffley, VP of Solutions Engineering. We call him Tuffley around the office, so we're just going to roll with that today, okay? You're all in for a treat, as Tyler and Tuffley are going to take us through a day in the life of optimizing a direct mail campaign with a real example using our good friends at Dynamo Donuts, including a live demo of Lob. So hold on to your hat, or should I say sprinkles, because you do not want to miss this. I happen to have one of their amazing chocolate creations right here. I actually took a bite, but I can't wait to enjoy the rest of it. Before we jump in, if you have any questions, you can drop them into the Q&A in the Zoom navigation bar. And at the end of the webinar, we'll answer as many as possible. But don't worry if we don't get to yours. We'll make sure to follow up after the webinar. And of course, you'll receive a recording of the webinar as well. Lastly, some of you have already confirmed your address to receive a special mail piece that will demonstrate everything you learned today. In addition, if you bring the postcard into a Dynamo Donut location, they'll give you 10% off your next order. So take just a second and fill out the form you see in chat to see Lob in action and get that discounted donut, because they're really tasty. Okay, let's get started. Now I'll pass the mic over to you, Tyler.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. And thanks so much, everybody, for joining today. Thanks so much for the introduction. Excited to be here and excited to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, which is getting the most out of your direct mail campaigns. Whether you're new to direct mail or have completely lost count of how many years you've been sending mail, optimizing, and testing your campaigns, as with many aspects of running a healthy business, is more about the journey than the destination. A product manager or engineer takes you on a journey through a good user experience. A salesperson takes you on a journey of discovery, scoping, and implementation. And as marketers and direct mail professionals, each of you takes your customers on the journey of exploring and experiencing your brand in the most low friction way possible. So today, we're going to walk you through how testing and optimization are a journey of their own and how that journey benefits from the concrete customer feedback and data that you collect along the way, some of which you may already have and some of which may be new to you. And we'll go on this journey together with a day in the life of optimizing with Dynamo Donuts, a fast-growing San Francisco-based business with multiple locations. Dynamo Donuts are a favorite of those of us in the Bay Area, and they are just starting their journey with direct mail. So we said, don't worry about a thing, and we'll show you how it's done. So I'll start off by walking you through the basics, and then Tuffley will jump in to show you exactly how it works in the platform. And for anyone signed up today, we'd also like to tempt you with a sweet treat of a 10% off your next order. All right. So we're going to walk you through the 3 different stages of the optimization journey. Now, the reason that these stages are so important is because each stage is an opportunity to test. The reason we're going to focus so much on testing today is because optimization doesn't occur when you're repeating the same process over and over again. It comes from thoughtful investment into new ways of operating, testing a hypothesis, or challenging a current assumption. Now, the 3 stages are, number 1, data intelligence and list management as the foundation of any campaign, mail piece formatting, and finally, creative content and calls to action. Let's look into each one in detail, starting with the foundation of any campaign, which is the list. So there are 2 buckets of individuals that are watching right now. There are those who have a list and those who don't have a list. Neither is better or worse, and ultimately your goal is to evolve your knowledge of your customers by engaging them. And so whether you're starting with a baseline of data from your point of sale system or CRM, or you're launching a brand new business and starting from scratch, we'll walk you through exactly what to do. So let's imagine that Dynamo has a list. Its list could have different types or segments of consumers they could be reaching out to, like names, emails, phone numbers, purchase history, flavor preference. Now, this is a really great place to start because these additional variables are going to give you the opportunity to really customize your mail to the recipient. Love chocolate? Send some chocolate donut imagery and see how it converts. Recent purchase, first purchase, frequent purchase. Use this data to begin segmenting your audience and experimenting with what works and what doesn't. You're not going to be batting 1,000, but each campaign you send will give you a deeper and deeper insight into your customer. Now, Let's imagine that Dynamo has a list, but that list is missing some key pieces of information, namely addresses. We see this a lot with companies that are new to direct mail marketing. They know there's ROI for this channel, but they've avoided it because their databases might not have that key information. And this could extend into a number of different categories. How can you start testing if your data set is small and each line item has a varying level of consistency of data? Enter Lob Audiences, our data enrichment tool that is specifically designed to fill those gaps in your database. For those of you who are not familiar with data enrichment, this term can mean a number of different things, but for the sake of today's conversation, we'll simplify it to mean using the data you already have as a baseline for capturing deeper insights, demographics, behaviors of your target audience. So what does that mean for Dynamo Donuts? Well, it means that they'll fill in the blanks on missing information, match addresses to phone numbers, emails, or IP addresses, and be confident in the foundation of the direct mail campaign. It also means they can get supplemental demographic information they may have never thought of that can help them to launch new flavors and gauge interest in new initiatives. Maybe they want to know which users love music before hosting an event, or love whiskey before making a bacon maple whiskey donut. Either way, data enrichment can help them accomplish these goals. But at Lob, we also like to take it one step further. It's not enough to just have the addresses. You want to have confidence that those addresses are deliverable and up to date. That's why our platform is certified to prepare those addresses for the mainstream or for the mail stream using the exact same standard as the Postal Service. This means any difference in the way an address is spelled or displayed or are corrected prior to getting affixed to the mail piece will provide immediate feedback on whether that address is even deliverable. If you want to put yourself even more in the driver's seat, we also have an available address verification API that will certify deliverability, provide change of address information, autofill forms on your website with cleansed information, and also provide a Lob-specific confidence score based off of our own mailing patterns, which all results in cleaner data and a zero-waste approach to mail. And with that, your list is now Lob optimized. And you even know who loves whiskey and who doesn't love a good time. I mean, who doesn't love whiskey and you can now kick off a targeted campaign to launch your new donut. And just to circle back to those of us who don't even have a list to begin with, Lob Audiences can actually build a net new list for you based on the specific parameters, geographies, demographics, socioeconomic status, or any other variable that's important to you. Great. So now that we have our list, let's move on to selecting your mail piece. This can be a pretty straightforward process depending on your experience with direct mail, but it's also a great opportunity to experiment with different sizes and creatives. So let's start off by walking through a high level of how we think about those mail formats. First, let's start with letters. While these can be and often are used for marketing, they're an ideal choice for sending transactional mail, bills, compliance notices, or really any mail that includes PII, personally identifiable information, or PHI, purely by nature of the fact that they have an envelope that surrounds all of that information. Postcards, on the other hand, are a great way to start experimenting with direct mail. They're low cost, come in a number of sizes, and have a good amount of creative real estate and a UV gloss coating that comes standard on every card. Now, for those of you who are looking for a bit more creative real estate, the self-mailer is a great next step. Think of this as an extra large postcard that has been folded in half so you get 4 distinct regions on which you can design and experiment with creative. So now that you've got your list and your audience, you can start thinking about your campaigns in terms of use cases or drivers. For Dynamo, we imagined a few use cases that were common amongst Lob customers and may be common for their business as well. The first use case is re-engagement, which could mean different things to different businesses. Maybe it means you want to get in touch with a customer who hasn't made a purchase in a while, or maybe you want to reach out to individuals that unsubscribed from your email list, maybe both. We'd recommend identifying a group that is or has showed purchasing intent, but may have gone dark recently. Upselling, on the other hand, is a great way to increase your average purchase price or entice your regulars to invest in something new. Maybe it's a whiskey donut, maybe it's a carrying case for donuts on the go. We like to think of this as a way to make the most out of your best customers or reward them for their loyalty to your business. This is also a great group to experiment with using new variables and CTAs, which we'll discuss in the next section. And then finally, a new product or location launch or event, this is pretty self-explanatory, but if you want to drive attendance to something, you want to make sure you're leveraging every channel available to you. Bombarding someone with a 50th email in a cadence isn't going to do much if it's going in their promotions folder or their spam, but generating a mail piece that sits on someone's counter or goes on their refrigerator could have a huge impact for driving attendance or getting people to engage with a new product or service. But the most important part of this phase is to enter with assumptions and exit with data and next steps. For example, after digging into their Lob dashboard and sales data, Dynamo might be surprised to find out that their upsell campaign was not a success. They thought they could rely on their most valuable customers to increase their spend, but instead they saw a low level of conversion. However, they're happy to find that their re-engagement test returned big results. So they think, what if I could make it easier for my customers to make a purchase once I re-engage them? Could I increase this conversion rate even more? Or to take it a step further, maybe they look at their unsuccessful upsell campaign and realize it has the same issue. The call to action feels a bit weak, or the copy could use some tweaking. So they make the decision to double down on their best customers and their customers that fell off. But this time, each segment would have a series of tests within those tests to identify whether it was truly the segmentation that succeeded or failed, or whether it was the content of the mail piece that needed help. It's at this point that testing becomes really critical to the evolution of your campaign. From QR codes to unique offers, there are a number of ways to lower the barriers to purchasing for your customers, but rather than tell you about that process, we thought it might be better to show you. So at this point, I'm going to hand off the wheel to Tuffley and let him take over for here. Mike?
Thank you, Tyler. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here shortly. Can everybody see that okay?
See it great. Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, what we're looking at here is an example creative of a postcard front. And I think that this is the best place to start the conversation for several reasons. The first is when we're talking about optimization, almost exclusively what we're really trying to optimize for is ROI, and that's either going to be those things that generate revenue or revenue itself, or somehow minimizing the costs associated. So if your return on ad spend is remaining stagnant, or maybe we're even seeing it fall off, one of the things that we would recommend, especially for a channel like direct mail, and especially in the context of Lob, is what are those things that you've historically done in your digital channels that you can apply to our technology to see the same level of success, but at an even higher response and conversion rate? So the reason why I've pulled this up is you can't have any experiment without having some way of measuring it. So what we'll talk about today are some dynamic CTAs. We'll also talk about ways in which we can leverage the data, map it through to the creative so that we can create a overall mail piece that resonates more deeply with your customer and drives traffic to your website or your retail store. And the reason why I've decided to choose this particular example is because it has both an online and a retail presence that I think is really cool and embodies a lot of the tactics that we see a number of our customers doing. So the best way to think about Lob is it's kind of like email in your mailbox. So a lot of the stuff that you're going to see in this creative, how you're seeing the data mapped through to it, and the overall result that lends itself to being measured, executed, and overall creating a customer experience that much more resembles your email or other social, other digital channels today than it does probably your what you historically regard as a direct mail customer journey. So let's dive in. The first place we're going to start is with the personalization aspects. So anything on this page can be personalized. This is all done in HTML, again, just like email. So think about all of the flexibility of personalization that you're afforded in that channel. So whether you're going to be just simple personalization, first name, all the way through to maybe custom imagery based on what we know about that customer. So if I bought a lookalike audience and I know that this particular household has they're a chocolate household, I'm definitely going to want to use imagery that's going to resonate with them. And again, this could be product imagery, this could be life cycle imagery, whatever data you have about your customer that's better going to inform that creative from a personalized perspective. And then another thing that, and I think that this is something that Lob has created as a differentiating technology, is the ability to personalize all of the CTAs as well. And I don't mean just like something as simple as, a designated redirect landing page for an entire campaign. I mean, literally, and this example in particular, this barcode can be personalized on a one-to-one basis. In fact, we have a customer that currently does this. So they know that when that consumer receives the marketing piece, they will take that postcard into their nearest retail location. And when that barcode is scanned at checkout, they'll know exactly who bought what ads were most relevant to them. And that's going to go into informing how they want to target that household going forward. So anything that you can see here that's in this double curly brace notation, that's going to represent basically a placeholder where we're going to map in that custom information. If we move to the back, we're going to see how that we can take that, again, even one step further. So much like you're accustomed to, I like the example of an abandoned shopping cart email. We're accustomed to receiving that email. It's been personalized. It says, hey, Mike, you forgot this donut in your shopping cart last week. We just want to send you a friendly reminder. And it's going to have a picture of that donut. It's going to have a link that I can easily click on. It's going to take me to that cart. It's already going to have maybe some discount applied to the order, and I can check out in a very seamless way. Well, now we're going to map that same experience over to direct mail. And the way that we're going to do that is through QR codes. So this QR code is actually being generated on a one-to-one basis with all of the information, not only about the customer, so and the campaign, so your typical UTM parameters that you would see, but also other information about the consumer themselves. Again, we're discussing ways in which we can reduce that overall cost. If we know that we have folks in our audience that have a higher propensity to respond to our direct mail as opposed to maybe some of our other channels, let's leave them in the lifecycle marketing recurring audience lists. And maybe we'll remove those folks that we've sent multiple outreach to that really haven't responded to the touch. And again, this is where we're making the most effective use of our ad spend. Another one that's really cool, and I think that this is a particularly interesting use case, is dynamic driving directions. So for example, you'll see here that we have this map and there's a route highlighted. And what this illustrates is I can actually incorporate driving directions to the nearest retail location, or maybe in other cases, it might be a branch or a pop-up, or it could be a ballot drop box. Wherever you want to drive foot traffic, this is a great example of how you can illustrate how close the nearest location is to the recipient's home address. So in addition to that, we've continued to have some of the other customized address information, store location, distance. All of this stuff is going to be text that's printed out dynamically. And basically what we're going to do is we've divided up our audience list by geolocale we want to drive them to their nearest retail location. So based on in which audience they live, they'll get a personalized postcard with that information. It's going to have a personalized picture of the donut we know that they like, and it's going to have their name and a unique offer printed. So that's everything around the creative. I'm going to go ahead and show you what this actually looks like in action, because the best way to go through executing an experiment is we have our hypothesis, we have our data. It's statistically significant. It has all of the elements that we want to test. Like I said, maybe this could be something where we're testing lifestyle imagery, or maybe it could be something where we're testing just something as simple as the body copy. So I want to test whether or not A value headline works better with a sense of urgency toned subheadline, or vice versa. There's a lot of ways. In fact, we don't actually ever advocate really for A/B testing, because with Lob, true multivariate testing at scale is possible, and it accelerates your ability to test many different elements all at once. And you're still able to maintain the simplicity of the experiment, because we have a number of different elements of the functionality that will allow you to be able to track, differentiate, and measure which of those elements had the highest response rates, which combinations of those elements had the highest conversion rates, and then be able to take that analysis and form the next iteration of your testing. So what I've done here is I've actually created a postcard. Now, in your environment, maybe this is something that's been event triggered. So for example, you know somebody last interacted, the last time they ordered was 60 days ago. So every day you have a job run that says, hey, show me the folks that haven't made a purchase in the last 60 days, and we're going to send them this offer. And that's a great use case, right? Because this is something that's timely, it's something that's integrated, it's automated, and we can continually test. So ideally, rather than doing a test once a year, even once, twice a year, maybe this is something that we could actually even do continuously, like on a quarterly basis. So when you send that request to Lob with all of the information from your data mapped through to that creative, that's when we generate this digital record. And what it will illustrate is all of that customization. And I'll go ahead and click on this link here so you can actually see what that proof looks like in real time. So as we look at this digital PDF proof, this is actually what's going to show up in the mailbox. So when we receive that request, we take that data, we populate all those placeholders that you've indicated where you want that custom specific information mapped into. And you can see here, I've personalized it with my name. I've also got this custom barcode that's been generated down here at the bottom. When I scroll down and look at the back, you can see here that I have the custom QR code. I have a map from my old house in North Beach over to the Marina location. It's got all this information, so it's going to create a compelling mail piece that I ideally would either generate foot traffic, or at very least redeeming the online DoorDash order that I'm trying to generate interest in. So I'm going to pause here and take a quick step back. With our QR codes, we actually have the ability to track all of that information on your behalf. So what does this mean? It means that not only are we the mechanism for generating all of the digital records, creating all the physical mail pieces and mailing them off, but we're also able to track all of that click-through data on your behalf. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my QR code reader here, and I'm going to take a picture of this QR code, and you're going to actually see that web page pop up. And one of the things that you're going to notice is that this redirect has taken me through to the landing page. It's appended all of the designated UTM parameters that I wanted, all the way down to, they used the QR code as opposed to inputting the Perl directly. I know exactly which user interacted with the offer. And one of the other really cool aspects of being able to create this experience, be able to measure that click-through data, is that we also have webhooks to automate how this data interacts with your system. So when I clicked on that QR code, one of our webhooks in our system fired back to my system. And what it did was I was able to capture that data and write it back to my database for further analysis after the campaign concludes. And it also allowed me to instantiate like maybe the next sequence in my automated customer journey. So if I actually go ahead and open up my email, and I'll go ahead and refresh it real quick, you'll actually see that that system that I have set up to catch that webhook also sent me this really cool email. And you can see all of the information that's included in our webhook. It tells me exactly, it gives me an example of the mail piece. So if you wanted to say, hey, I saw that your postcard had been delivered, check out this your mailbox for this particular offer. That's the kind of information that we can automate and deliver to your systems through our webhooks, whether that's something like a scan event, or it could be something like a mail event. So for example, the postcard being delivered. Again, it's all about visibility into where your mail is at all times and how your consumers are interacting with it, and then being able to coordinate that in concert with some of your other digital channels. So now I'm going to go back and I want to point out a couple of other really cool key features here. Tyler had mentioned at the beginning, one of the parts about reducing cost is really understanding what is the integrity of our address data to begin with. So you'll see here that we generate this unique barcode. You'll see here that we've standardized all of the address information for this particular recipient. One of the things that we do is when we consume that request from your system to generate a mail piece, is we take that data and we validate it against our address verification system. All we're looking for is this a deliverable address? You have the ability to specify within the settings how strict you want us to be with that particular information. So if you want a mail piece, we want to know that that mail piece is going to get there with utter certainty. We're going to set that setting to strict, and only purely deliverable addresses will actually generate a mail piece. Otherwise, we'll actually return a response back with an error that says, hey, this address data was not consistent with your mail strictness settings. And we have several other ones, but at the very least, we can preempt the manufacturing and sending of purely undeliverable mail, which has the lowest probability of landing in market and just ultimately ends in waste, unnecessary cost, all of that. So when I go back to this digital record, I want to show you some of the other things that we were also doing in real time. When we receive that request, we also run that address through the National Change of Address database. And we tell you in the response whether or not a customer has moved. And if they have, we'll give you their forwarding, city, state, and zip 5. And a lot of our customers, especially ones that have regional specific offers, like for example, we don't want this mail piece being forwarded outside of the San Francisco Bay Area. Otherwise, it's a waste of our resources, and it could ultimately lead to like a bad customer journey if they receive an offer that's not valid in their particular area. So what we do is we return a recipient moved, and if that equals true, we can determine, oh, do we want this to actually be forwarded, or do we want to cancel it out? Or do we want to resend it and maybe we'll just use current resident so that it still lands in market at that particular household? So there's a lot of really great things that we do just from a mail logistics perspective to help you reduce unnecessary spend. One of the other things that is really integral and I think germane to this conversation is going to be, again, part of the analysis. We have the ability through our metadata feature to tag every single mail piece that's going out. What this allows us to do is understand, hey, what batch was this associated with? What household even, what specific customer received this mail piece and how many mail pieces have they received? What was the geographic information? What was the demographic information? What audience list? All of the information that we want to do, we want to tag or basically keyword index every single mail piece by, so that when we can search and filter in our platform, or we're trying to slice and dice the data back in our system when we're doing analysis later on, it allows us to distinguish every single mail piece. So again, if you're doing A, B, or ABN testing, you'll know exactly which creative the person received. You'll know exactly, and if I refresh this, you'll see the postcard viewed event, you'll know exactly who scanned on what version of what creative associated with what campaign. You'll know exactly how many times, their IP address, when it was scanned. You'll know when it was delivered. All of this information that goes into informing true direct mail attribution, something that heretofore really hasn't been possible. So I'm actually going to pivot real quickly over to an example of a mail piece that actually was sent through the mail stream, and you'll actually get a sense of what all of these tracking events look like. So now across the top, you can see I have this additional timeline. It's basically an event timeline for everything from when we received that request and created the digital proof all the way through to when it was processed for delivery, meaning it was loaded on the truck. And we even now have a delivered event so that we're able to track down to the hour when that mail piece landed in mailbox. So if you have a very complex attribution model, maybe it's multi-touch, maybe it's a time decay model, you want to know when that mail piece, when that touch occurred, when that mail piece landed in market, so that you could start the stopwatch right then and there and know exactly how much a percentage of attribution you want to weight that particular touch. And again, this is the type of visibility in conjunction with that scan event data, or when somebody calls your unique toll-free number, or when somebody interacts with that unique Pearl that redirects them to the page and captures the event. This is how you measure all of these things accurately. Again, something that hasn't been able to be done because you typically only have visibility into when it was handed off to USPS. So with each of these events, I can also associate a webhook. And again, I can time out and coordinate some of my other marketing automation in concert with all of these real world mail events. So that brings me to the last piece, which is really around the measurement component. So if I pull up our dashboard, this is an example of how I can see all of the tracking events for every single mail piece that was sent out in any given time period. I can apply filters such as metadata so that I can only look at a particular batch, or I can see, hey, what was the mail speed to a particular market? I want to plan out a Black Friday notice to the greater Los Angeles area. When do I need to send my postcards by so that they hit in home on the most optimal date? This is how we plan for all of those mail events, but also how we measure, again, like normalize that data to best understand, well, how much of our mail actually landed where we had intended. If everything has been done correctly and we've been able to minimize through high integrity data that we either have first party or that we've purchased from a third party data vendor, and we've cleansed it through our address verification, as Tyler had mentioned, all the way through to our mail strictness settings and some of our NCOA automation to be able to ensure that the maximum amount of mail is going to land in market, it helps us to normalize those results. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to take into consideration mail that never arrived in market because we don't really know how it would have interacted with the recipient. So in addition to knowing everything about our mail, where it's at any given point in time, see the evolution of that campaign, I also want to look into some of the other information about my direct mail campaign. So what was the average mail speed for that particular campaign or that given period so that I can plan out my campaigns better? Or if I look at attribution analytics, how many mail pieces were scanned and when, which people scanned those particular locations. So again, the nice thing is not only do you have all of this in a nice, easy to read dashboard that you can log into your Lob account and see and click through firsthand, but most importantly, we are an API-based first platform. And all of this information can be exported in a fully automated way back to your systems so that you can pull all of your Lob data into your BI tool, along with all of your order and revenue data pulled across all of your systems, and then actually be able to make those correlations, paint a more holistic picture of the success of your campaign, all the way down to the success of each unique creatives. So with that, I've concluded everything that I wanted to show today about how from the initial concept and construction of an experiment through to the automated execution, the measurement and export of that data for analysis, so that we can take all of those findings and then feed them back into the subsequent campaign, and thus renews the cycle of optimization. Because as we always say, optimization is not a destination, but a journey.
Wow. I mean, bravo. Oh, I think I just dropped my donut. Bravo both to Tyler and Tuffley, that was awesome. I mean, seeing that marriage of the digital and the physical, what I've been calling phygital, is so cool. And I spent 10 years in the email marketing industry before making the jump over. I'd say up to direct mail, and it's so cool to see how this comes together, just like you would do an email. But I feel like it's even more powerful and easier, which is so awesome. I especially have to say, I love seeing all of the QR codes, especially the one-to-one QR codes. And this resurgence of QR codes has been so interesting and so powerful. And I'm going to throw in a little data point from our soon to be released State of Direct Mail Consumer Insights report. And it showed that nearly 40% of consumers report using a QR code to take action with a direct mail piece. So if you're not using QR codes, you might want to get on that bus. And as a bonus, I have a special exclusive offer for everybody at the webinar today. I'm going to launch a quick poll here and give you all early access to our State of Direct Mail Consumer Insights webinar registration. By responding yes, we'll get you registered for the session because attendance is limited and will book out. We're kind of like Taylor Swift's Eras Tour that way. Plus, we're going to send you a copy of the report as soon as it becomes available. It'll literally be hot off the press or straight out of the fryer if we're still speaking in donut terms. Now, let's get to those audience questions. So Tuffley, I know you just got done talking for a while, but I'm going to throw this first one over to you. This comes in from our audience. How can I track and measure the success of my direct mail campaigns? And there's a second part, so I'll ask them both together. Can Lob provide me with detailed analytics and insights on things like open rates, response, and conversion?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the best way to answer it really depends upon the kind of the marketing maturity curve of where that particular marketer is at. And I understand that there's so much complexity that can go into trying to manage these things across all of these various channels. And the reason why I kind of link it back to where you're at, because that maps most closely to attribution models. So with a lot of our customers that are maybe just getting their feet wet with direct mail, or they've historically done it through kind of traditional print and mail vendors with limited visibility, and they have kind of a less robust, I don't want to say crude, but less complex attribution measurement capabilities. They're doing something as simple as like a matchback process. That's a different course of action than we would say advise for somebody, again, who's maybe doing a single touch attribution methodology, right? First or last touch, or a multi-touch where it could be a combination of weighted first and last touch, or time decay, or all the different W and other shapes that go into more complex attribution models depending on the number and type of channels. And so the answer is that we can help you with any one of those. And as I demonstrated earlier, it's going to be a combination of using that delivered event to know exactly when the touch occurred, and then using one of the multiple personalized CTAs. We have customers that are literally sending out one-to-one QR codes in addition to one-to-one pearls. So like, for example, it might be lob.com/Kim C's offer, right? Where they can actually, even down to that level. But wherever, it's all about meeting your customer where they're at. So however they're going to interact with your product or service. Again, some folks probably don't want to click on a QR code to buy a car, but that's where that personalized pearl may come into play. But either way, we're going to be able to help you measure when that click-through occurred. We're also going to be able to help measure when maybe it didn't necessarily, that click-through never happened, but it was delivered. And then subsequently, rather than just throw that attribution to SEO or organic web traffic, know that it was no coincidence that there was a conversion later that evening by that household when they went and saw your postcard and then just typed in your a search for your product or service.
Exactly. And I may have just turned you into a marketer when you said it depends. So I'm very proud of you. All right. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So let's move into the second one that I see here. What mail formats does Lob offer, and what formats do you recommend A/B testing? Although I know we said we don't recommend just pure A/B testing because we can do multivariate. So let me throw that one over to you, Tyler.
Yeah. So I think as far as what formats we recommend, ultimately that's going to be up to you and your business and your needs. But the formats that we offer can be at a high level categorized into postcards, letters, checks, and self mailers. And then under each one of those product categories, there's a number of different permutations. So we'll take postcards, for example. There's 4x6, 6x9, 6x11, and then different postage classes for each one of those. So you can go standard class, which delivers at a little bit of a slower speed, or first class, which delivers at a bit of a faster speed. And so within each product category, you can do a lot of testing. So you can test whether a little bit more creative real estate on a 6x11 converts better than a 4x6. You can test whether, when somebody takes an action on your website, if receiving a postcard a little bit faster in their mailbox helps to get them converted. And then conversely, you can also test between different categories. So, you might want to test, as we mentioned earlier, the difference between how a postcard converts versus how a self-mailer converts. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to formats, we do have some mechanisms to kind of expand the pre-baked formats that we have available inside of the platform and available via API endpoints. But what we'd really encourage you to do, and this is a lot of what Tuffley talked about today, is really focus on the content inside of those mail pieces, right? So while the format is going to be an important test variable, really focusing on the timeliness of those mail pieces, the copy on those mail pieces, the calls to action on those mail pieces. Those are going to be the things that really drive those conversions for you.
Kind of like you focus on the ingredients that you're going to put in a donut to make it taste delicious. In your
That's
case,
exactly right.
Awesome. All right, I've got one more. Let's see. Can I integrate Lob with my existing tech stack, such as my CRM or marketing automation tool? And what's the benefit of doing this? I'll just let you answer that again, Tyler, since we're chatting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Tuffley said a little bit earlier that you want to meet your customers where they are, and I think on the flip side of that, we also want to meet our customers where they are. And so if you go to lob.com/integrations, you'll find a number of different integrated tech platforms that we offer. And some of those integrations are simple API integrations. Some of them are native, meaning they live inside of that platform, and you never have to leave that platform in order to build a user journey. But at the end of the day, we are an API first company, and one of the benefits of that is that it's IT agnostic technology and really gives you the ability and our team the ability to get really creative and help you to build out interesting integrations, whether that's into your own IP or into a legacy data system that we might not have had familiarity with, but at the end of the day, we have a pro services arm that can really kind of address any of your needs to build out custom integrations into whatever sort of CRM or marketing automation tool you have.
Right on. That's awesome. Okay, guys, the time has come. Our producer's waving at me that's all the time we have for questions. But again, no worries. If we didn't get to yours, we'll absolutely follow up with you after this webinar. If you'd like to see how Lob can help your company optimize its direct mail workflows, go ahead and answer the poll you'll see on your screen now, and we'll reach out to you following the webinar. You can also scan the QR code, we practice what we preach, on the screen now and book a time right here, right now. I'd also like to remind you to keep an eye out for your postcard, which will give you a discounted donut, more information on Lob, and another opportunity to book a demo of the Lob platform. If you're very lucky, we may even set you up on a call with Tyler or Tuffley to do a deeper dive. I'd like to thank you all for attending and participating, and a massive thank you to Tyler and Tuffley for sharing all your awesome insights. That was truly the sprinkles galore on the donuts. And thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, happy mailing. And now I'm going to go polish off this chocolate donut.